Welcome to another episode of Route 139. We're so happy you could join us here today. Well, some of you may already be establishing some credit. This on CYC, we have a lot of range of youth, and some of you may already have a credit card. Well, when I was a youth, I wasn't sure when to get my first credit card. And when I finally got one, I was thrilled. But what happens when you get your credit card? When should you get it? How many should you get? And what should you do to pay it off? So establishing credit is very important, because as you go from high school to college to grad school, getting college loans, buying a car, buying a home. We're not going to talk about buying a home this time. We're going to save that for another time. So let's talk a little bit about our credit issues and how we can establish good credit. And this is a lesson that I want to hear as well too. So let's start. When is a good time to establish credit? Well, first of all, before I start, I want to ask him so many questions. I want to introduce Mr. Steve Shelby. Steve Shelby is the president of Streamline Financial Corporation. He is also a mortgage broker and a real estate agent and broker. Is that correct? Did I leave anything out? I know you do so many wonderful things. He's also a public speaker, and he has been wonderful. He has spoken in many different places, and everybody always wants Steve to come back. So we're glad to have Steve join us here today. Okay, now we can get into our questions.
Thank you, Dr. Claudius. Thank you so much for having me. The subject of financial literacy and credit awareness is actually one that's very near and dear to my heart. I feel that here in the United States, with as wonderful as an education system as we have, I think that it's a shame that kids can go to high school, they can take home economics, they can learn how to bake a pineapple upside down cake, but they don't know how to manage their credit. I don't think many people even know what credit is.
And you know what's really important? It's actually a powerful point, because there is a lot of statistics that shows that family stress, husband and wives, couples, a lot of that stress, one of the major stressors in families is financial stress. So it's not just hitting your wallet, but it's actually, affecting the whole family and the happiness and the wellness of the family. So certainly, yes, the pineapple cake sounds, delicious, but it's gone in a couple minutes. But, your credit history is going to stick with you for a very, very long time.
Indeed. They say in this country that cash is king. I have to disagree with that statement. I think I would correct people and say that credit is king, even more so than cash nowadays. Because cash comes and goes. Credit can be there for you.
Well, since this is CYC, I'm going to say Christ is king, but I know I just had to throw that in.
Thank you for that.
Credit is very important too.
Thank you for that distinction, because it is very important to keep your focus straight on Christ at all times.
Absolutely.
So, but because we're talking about credit, I think it's important to talk about what credit is, what a credit report is, and then talk about what's on it. Mm-hmm. So, what is credit? Credit, your credit history is a compilation of information that's gathered by any number of dozens of credit repositories here in the United States. The three primary repositories that everyone knows about is Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian. But there's dozens more that most people don't know about. But those are the three major ones. So they compile information about you, Marilyn, that contains things about your payment history, about your residence history, about your employment history. These are things many people don't realize that are on your credit report.
Well, if I'm just in high school now, is this a good time to even get a credit card, or should I wait till I'm in college or when I graduate and actually have a paying job, or should I get a card for just gas or a department store card, and if so, then how many?
Probably the number one question that I'm asked is, when should I begin to establish my credit? The answer to that question is today, now. This is not something that you would put off for tomorrow. Absolutely. Okay. The sooner the better. The primary reason being is one of the greatest factors that contributes to your credit score, either your FICO score or your Beacon score. You've probably heard those terms before. We can address them later and define them later. But one of the primary factors that determines how high that credit score is going to be is your length of credit. It's not even your payment history, as many people think. So the earlier you begin to establish your credit history, the better and the sooner you'll get to those higher credit scores that we all desire.
All right, so you don't now leave the screen and run and find your parents and tell them to hurry up and sign you up for your first visa. You need to hold on a second. You need to listen to what Steve's going to tell you next, because once you get that flashy little plastic card in your hand, how you handle that is going to very important word, establish.
So true.
Okay, so when you establish something, you want to establish on a very good ground. Tell us a little bit how to establish it and what should me as a high school person do with establishing this credit history that's going to last for me.
So what happens here in the United States is credit card companies buy massive lists of data from one another. And these lists of data contain things about the name of a person, their age, social security number, so on and so forth. One of the metrics is often that they look for is credit history. They look for new borrowers, people who haven't had credit in the past. And so what happens the minute you turn 18? Two things. A, your now signature is legally binding in many places. And B, you can now have credit. So you're going to, most likely, the minute you turn 18 or very soon thereafter, you're going to have a credit card offer in the mail. The way you respond to that credit card offer and what you do with that credit after that is going to determine a large part of the trajectory of things to come in your life. So two things happen. A, you get the credit card, maybe it has a $3,000 limit or $5,000 limit. You take out all your friends, you go to dinner, and you're the big spender. You pick up the tab every time because you're a great guy.
That's right.
Well, what happens when you get your first bill? Maybe the balance is now $2,000, but the minimum payment is $25. No big deal, I can afford $25. So people will just pay the minimum payment, and they'll do this month in and month out for many, many months. What they don't realize is the hidden, and I hate to use the word evil, but there is definitely something that you should be aware of, is a term called compounding interest. So on credit cards, it's not a simple pre-calculated interest rate. On credit cards, you have a balance that's rotating, and you pay the interest on that each month. When you make that minimum payment, you're not going to make any headway. You're not paying any of the principal balance which you ran up. Maybe a very, very, very small amount. Maybe 2 or 3% of the balance. So be careful. When you get that credit card, you have to make large payments on it. And to establish credit, you don't want to pay it all off very, very fast. You want to pay it off in a way that allows you to establish credit, because length of time that you establish credit is very, very important. So don't pay it all off in a hurry. It's not a race. Make monthly payments, but don't make the minimum payment either. Pay, 20% of your balance each month is a good number to start with.
And even if it's going to accrue some interest?
It's fine.
Okay, but then eventually you just want to be able to pay it off, so then you don't. So you've established your credit, you've established a payment history, and you're still not going to be just, buried
Correct.
under these.
Once your credit score is 800, you have a great credit score, and then you can reduce your balances, bring them down to zero, but don't close the accounts. That's a big mistake people make, is to close the account, and when you close the account, you lose the credit.
Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to having you again on another episode of Route 139.